The meeting that no one expected day began like any other for Sundar Pichai. He was walking through the busy streets of Mountain View, his phone buzzing with notifications from all corners of the world. Meetings with world leaders, updates from Google engineers, financial reports, and new ideas for the future of technology. Everything seemed to demand his attention at once. But today, he had chosen something unusual. Instead of sending his assistant or making an online order, Sundar decided to visit a local grocery store himself. He wanted to remind himself what it felt like to stand in line, to pick fruits by hand, to be one among the crowd. For him, humility wasn't just a word, it was something he carried in his daily life. The grocery store was simple. Nothing fancy. The kind of place where people hurried in after work, where mothers dragged tired children past candy aisles, and where workers behind the counter often went unnoticed. Sundar grabbed a basket and moved through the aisles quietly, blending in. He picked apples, rice, some bread, and milk. Nothing out of the ordinary. But as he walked toward the cashier, he froze. His heart skipped a beat. Not because of the long line, not because of the delay, but because the man behind the counter had a face he would never forget. The cashier was older now, with lines around. His eyes and gray at his temples, but Sundar knew instantly who he was. Memories came rushing back like a flood, memories of school days in Chennai, when Sundar was just a thin boy who loved books and science, when his quiet nature made him an easy target for laughter. Standing behind the counter was Arjun, his childhood. Bully, the boy who once mocked his clothes, who threw his notebooks to the ground, who whispered cruel words in the classroom that made Sundar's eyes sting with shame. That time seemed to slow. Sundar gripped his basket tighter. Arjun didn't look up at first. He was scanning items for the customer ahead with tired, mechanical movements. Sundar's mind raced. Should he walk away? Should he pretend he didn't see? Or should he face the man who had once made his life so difficult? The line moved forward, one step closer. Sundar could feel his chest tighten. Memories clashed with the present. He remembered how small he felt in school corridors, how he often ate lunch alone, how laughter behind his back made him question his worth. And yet here he was today, CEO of one of the largest companies in the world standing, in line at a grocery store where the man who once held power over him was now ringing up apples and nokta. Finally, it was his turn. Arjun looked up. His eyes met Sundar's, and in that moment, everything froze. The cashier blinked. Confusion flickered across his face, then shock, and then something that looked almost like fear. His lip parted, but no words came out. Sundar placed his basket on the counter, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. Hello, Arjun. The sound of his name seemed to pull Arjun back to reality. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the apples. Sundar, is that really you? His voice was low, almost a whisper, but there was no mistaking the disbelief. Customers behind Sundar grew impatient. Someone coughed loudly. Another muttered about the delay. But neither Sundar nor Arjun cared. They were locked in a moment that reached far beyond the grocery store. It's been a long time, Sundar said. His tone was steady, but inside his heart pounded. Arjun swallowed hard. His eyes dropped, avoiding Sundar's gaze. Yes, a very long time. His voice carried weight, not the arrogance Sundar remembered, but something broken, something. Defeated. As the scanner beeped over each item, Sundar watched Arjun closely. This was not the confident boy who once ruled the schoolyard. This was a man beaten down by life, standing behind a counter for minimum wage, his shoulders heavy with unseen burdens. Memories battled within Sundar, pain from the past, but also an unexpected wave of compassion. He thought of all the years, between then and now, of how people change, of how circumstances humble even the strongest. The last item was scanned. Silence stretched between them. Arjun finally looked up, his eyes glassy, and said words Sundar never thought he would hear. I'm sorry. For everything. The apology hung in the air. Sundar's breath caught. His mind spun with questions. with emotions, with possibilities. He wanted to ask why, he wanted to ask how life had led Arjun here. He wanted to know if the boy who once mocked kindness had finally learned its value. But before he could respond, a customer behind him tapped his shoulder roughly. "Are you paying or what?" The man snapped. Sundar turned, his calm gaze silencing the man instantly. Then he faced Arjun again. "We need to talk," Sundar said softly, but firmly. Arjun froze. His eyes widened. "Talk? Now?" "Not here," Sundar replied. "After. Your shift. I'll wait." Sundar picked up his bag of groceries, walked out of the store, and sat down on a bench nearby. The weight of the past pressed down on him, but so did the question of what came next, because sometimes life brings people back into your path not by accident, but for a reason. And Sundar was about to find out why. Asterisk the silence between the past. And the present air outside the grocery store carried a strange heaviness, almost as if time itself was holding its breath. Sundar sat on the old wooden bench near the parking lot, the bag of groceries by his side, but he barely noticed the weight of it. His eyes kept drifting back to the glass doors of the store, sliding open and shut as customers hurried in and out. Each time the doors parted, his heart gave a small jolt. Was this the moment Arjun would walk out? Or would he stay inside, pretending Sundar never came, burying himself in the routine of scanning barcodes and handing out receipts? Sundar leaned back slightly, his mind replaying fragments of his childhood. He remembered the classroom where sunlight streamed through dusty windows, the chalk squeaking on the blackboard, and the quiet way he used to keep to himself. He had always been gentle, reserved, careful with his words, but that gentleness had made him a target. Arjun's laughter echoed in his ears, sharp and cruel, the kind of laughter that cut deeper than fists. Yet now, years later, Sundar wondered what that laughter had cost Arjun himself. Was it simply the cruelty of a child who didn't know better? Or had it been something darker pain that Arjun carried even then, hidden beneath arrogance? Minutes passed slowly, dragging like hours. Sundar's phone buzzed again and again, but he ignored it. His assistants would be confused about why he wasn't answering, maybe even worried, but none of that mattered right now. This moment wasn't about Google or meetings or stock prices. It was about something far older, something that had lived quietly inside him for decades. The unfinished story between him and Arjun. Inside the store. Behind the counter, Arjun felt his hands trembling as he gave change to another customer. His chest tightened as he glanced toward the sliding doors, knowing Sundar was just beyond them, waiting. The apology he had whispered moments ago still echoed in his mind. He had said it almost without thinking, the words rushing out of him like water breaking through a dam. For years he had carried the memory of what he had done, the shame buried deep. But seeing Sundar again, seeing what he had become, had torn the silence wide open. But fear clawed at him. What if Sundar wanted revenge? What if he wanted to humiliate him the way Arjun once had humiliated him? What if this meeting wasn't about forgiveness, but about exposing his failures? His manager's voice snapped him back. "Arjun, focus. Stop staring at the door. We've got customers waiting." He nodded quickly, forcing his hands to steady, forcing his mind to return to the rhythm of work. Scan, beep, bag, smile. But each movement felt heavier than the last. He could feel Sundar's presence outside like a weight pressing against his chest. Finally, the clock above the counter ticked past the end of his shift. He hesitated. Should he walk out? Or should he sneak through the back door and disappear? He imagined Sundar's face again, calm, steady, with the kind of patience that unnerved him. No anger, no mocking tone, just a quiet determination. Arjun knew he couldn't hide forever. With a deep breath, he removed his apron, folded it slowly, and walked toward the glass doors. The cool air of the evening brushed against his face as he stepped outside. His eyes searched the parking lot until they landed on the bench. Sundar was still there, sitting with the same calmness as before. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. The silence between them was louder than any words. You came, Sundar finally said, his voice low but steady. Arjun swallowed, his throat dry. I almost didn't. Sundar nodded slightly, as if he had expected that. But you did? And that means something. Arjun sat down at the far end of the bench, keeping a space between them. He couldn't bring himself to sit too close. His hands rested on his knees, fidgeting, restless. He felt smaller than he had ever felt before, smaller even than Sundar. Must have felt in those classrooms long ago. You must hate me, Arjun said finally, his voice heavy with shame. Sundar looked at him, studying the lines on his face, the weariness in his eyes. I don't hate you, he replied softly. I never did. I hated what you did, but I never hated you. The words struck Arjun like a blow. He had expected anger, maybe even gloating, but not this, not kindness, not grace. His chest tightened, and he felt something burn up the back of his eyes. I don't deserve that. Arjun whispered. Maybe not, Sundar said gently. But life is strange. Sometimes it gives us another chance to face the things we tried to bury. Today is one of those chances. Arjun lowered his head, shame pressing down like a weight. You don't know how many times I thought about what I did to you. I was cruel. I was horrible. I laughed at you, mocked you, made you feel small, and then life made me small. Smaller than I ever imagined. His voice cracked on the last words. Sundar let the silence linger before he spoke again. Life has a way of humbling us. But it can also teach us. The question is, did it teach you? Arjun lifted his head slowly, his eyes meeting Sundar's. Yes, he said firmly, his voice shaking. Yes, it did. I lost everything I thought made me powerful. I lost money, friends, respect. I ended up here ringing up groceries just to survive. Every night I thought about the way I treated people, about the boy I used to be. And every night I wished I could take it back. Sundar felt the sincerity in his words, the weight of regret that only comes from years of carrying it. For the first time he saw not the bully, but the broken man behind the mask, yet questions still stirred within him. Why had life brought Arjun to this point? What had happened after school? What had led him down this path? Sundar needed to know. Tell me everything, Sundar said quietly. Arjun hesitated, fear flickering across his face. Everything. Yes, Sundar replied, his eyes steady. I want to know who you became after those days. I want to understand how you ended up here. I want to know the truth. Arjun's chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. Part of him wanted to walk away, to bury the past again. But another part, the part that had carried guilt for decades, longed for release. He looked at Sundar, and in that moment, he knew this was it. The moment to finally open the door he had kept locked for too long. All right, Arjun said, his voice trembling but firm. I'll tell you, but you won't look at me the same again. Sundar leaned forward slightly, his eyes unwavering. Then let me be the judge of that. The night air grew colder, shadows lengthening around them. As Arjun took a deep breath and prepared to reveal the truth, the truth behind the bully, night air settled heavy around them. The hum of cars on the nearby road fading into the background, as if the world itself had decided to quiet down and listen. Sundar sat still, his eyes never leaving Arjun, who leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped tightly as though he were holding on to the last pieces of himself. For years, Sundar had carried the memory of the boy who made his school days a battlefield. But what he saw now was not that boy, it was a man weighed down by ghosts. Trembling as if speaking the truth might shatter him completely, Arjun cleared his throat, his voice rough and low. After school, I thought life would be easy. I was confident, cocky, maybe even stupid. I believe I was destined for success just because I was louder than everyone else. I didn't study hard, I didn't respect teachers, and I didn't care about anyone but myself. But life doesn't reward arrogance. It punishes it. Sundar listened intently, the sincerity in Arjun's words pulling him deeper into the story. Arjun's eyes drifted, staring into the distance. As if each word dragged him back to a memory he wished he could erase. My father had a small business. I thought I would take over, expand it, make it huge. But I never bothered to learn the work. I was too busy chasing parties, drinking, wasting money, showing off. I thought money would never run out. Then, one day, it did. The business collapsed. My father passed away soon after, and I was left with debts I couldn't pay. His voice cracked, and he paused, pressing his fists together tightly. Sundar felt something stir inside him. He remembered the proud boy who once strutted through school halls, always surrounded by followers. Now that boy sat in front of him, broken by the very pride that once made him untouchable. Arjun continued, his voice trembling. I tried everything odd. Jobs, small ventures, even risky loans. Nothing worked. I was drowning, Sundar. And when you're drowning, you grab anything to survive, even if it pulls you down further. I made mistakes, terrible ones. I trusted the wrong people. I borrowed from men you don't ever want to owe money to. I lost what little I had left. Friends disappeared. The people who once laughed at my jokes and followed me everywhere vanished when the money did. I was alone. He let out a shaky breath, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. There were nights I slept on the street. Nights I thought it would be easier not to wake up at all. But something kept me alive, though I don't even know what. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was punishment. Maybe it was the memory of all the people I hurt, including you. I couldn't run from that. No matter where I went, your face came back to me. I remembered your silence in the classroom, the way I laughed when you dropped your books, the way I made you feel like you didn't belong. And now, I was the one who didn't belong anywhere. Sundar's chest tightened. He had expected excuses, maybe even denial, but not this raw honesty. There was no arrogance left in Arjun, only the hollow echo of a man who had been broken and reshaped by life. Arjun leaned closer, his eyes desperate. You need to know something? I wasn't cruel to you just because you were quiet or different. I was cruel because I was jealous. You had something I didn't. Even back then, teachers respected you. Even when you were silent, people admired your intelligence, your calmness. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to tear you down because I couldn't rise myself. It wasn't strength, Sundar. It was weakness, pure weakness. The admission cut through the night like a knife. Sundar felt his throat tighten. For years, he had carried those scars, believing he was bullied for being less, for being small, for being different. But now he was hearing the truth. It wasn't because he lacked something, but because he had something that threatened someone else. Sundar looked at Arjun carefully, his voice calm but firm. Do you understand what your jealousy did? Do you know how much it hurt? Arjun's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly. Yes, I can never take it back. I can never undo it. I can only say I'm sorry, though I know that's not enough. I lost everything, Sundar. Everything. And maybe that was my punishment. The silence stretched between them again, heavy with the weight of old wounds and new truths. Sundar felt the sting of his childhood pain blending with the ache of seeing a man so utterly broken. Forgiveness was not something that came easily. But he also knew that carrying hatred would only keep both of them trapped in the past. Just then, Arjun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, and Sundar noticed a sudden change in his face. Fear. Not the nervous kind, but raw, bone-deep fear. Arjun's hand shook as he silenced the call, his eyes darting around as if someone might be watching. Sundar narrowed his eyes. Who was that? Arjun hesitated, his lips parting, but no words came out. Sundar leaned in slightly. Arjun, who was it? Finally, Arjun whispered, his voice barely audible. Someone I owe money to. They don't forgive easily. And if they find out I was talking to you, it could be dangerous for both of us. Sundar's heart skipped. Suddenly, the conversation had shifted. This wasn't just about old wounds anymore. This was about something happening now. Something darker that reached into Arjun's present life. Dangerous? Sundar asked, his voice steady but urgent. What do you mean? Arjun looked at him with eyes full of fear and desperation. You don't understand, Sundar. These aren't just people you can negotiate with. They'll come after me and anyone close to me. And now that you're here, now that they know I've seen you." He trailed off, his voice breaking. Sundar felt the chill of unease crawl down his spine. What had started as a meeting with a childhood bully was unfolding into something far bigger, far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Arjun grabbed Sundar's arm suddenly, his grip tight, his eyes pleading. "You shouldn't have come back into my life. You don't know what kind of mess I'm in. But it's too late now. They'll know. They always know." The fear in his voice was not something Sundar could ignore. And in that moment, Sundar realized that whatever this was, whatever darkness Arjun had entangled himself in, he was now a part of it too. Asterisk, the shadows of death whirled around them seemed to dim, though the streetlights glowed faintly across the parking lot. Sundar sat motionless, his eyes fixed on Arjun's trembling face. The man who once held power over him now looked like a cornered animal, glancing left and right as if danger might emerge from the shadows any second. Sundar had lived through intense boardroom battles, had spoken before leaders and critics, had navigated storms of pressure that would crush most people. But what he saw in Arjun's eyes was not the kind of fear born in business. It was survival fear, primal, raw. Sundar's voice was calm, but edged with steel. "Tell me everything. Who are these people you owe?" Arjun shook his head violently, his voice breaking. "You don't understand, Sundar. Once you're in their debt, you don't get out. Not alive, at least. I tried to pay them back, but the interest keeps growing. Every time I think I've caught up, I fall deeper. They control everything. Even my job here barely covers the payments I send. And when I miss one, they remind me who's in charge." Asterisk key. Lifted sleeves slightly, and Sundar's breath caught. Dark bruises covered Arjun's forearm, ugly purple marks that told stories words couldn't. Sundar felt his stomach twist. "They beat you?" Sundar asked, his voice lower now, heavy, with both anger and disbelief. Asterisk. Arjun gave a hollow laugh, one that sounded more like a sob. "Beating is the least of it. They've threatened my family, what little I have left. My mother is old, frail. If they can't get to me, they'll get to her. I've been living in fear every single day. And now, you showing up, it complicates everything. They watch me, Sundar. They'll notice if I've been talking to someone like you." Sundar's heart pounded. Part of him wanted to walk away, to step out of this darkness that wasn't his burden to carry. But another part, deeper, stronger, refused. He remembered his own childhood pain, the loneliness he had carried because of Arjun's cruelty. He could walk away now, leave Arjun to his fate, and no one would blame him. But Sundar had never been the kind of man who measured life in what was deserved. He measured it in what was right. "Then we won't let them control you," Sundar said firmly, his voice steady despite the unease rising in his chest. "You're not alone in this anymore." Arjun's eyes widened, panic flashing. "No, Sundar, no. You don't know them. They'll crush you too. You think being powerful, being famous, being the CEO of Google protects you? It doesn't. To them, you're just another man with blood in his veins. They'll exploit you, use you. Against me, or worse. They'll make you regret ever sitting here with me." But Sundar didn't flinch. He leaned forward, his voice softer but unyielding. "Arjun, I didn't come here tonight to settle scores. I came because fate put us in the same place again. And maybe fate has a reason. Maybe it wants me to see this side of you, the broken, scared man who needs help. And maybe, just maybe, my role isn't to remember the boy who hurt me, but to help the man who's drowning now." For the first time, Arjun broke completely. His shoulders shook, and tears slid down his face. The man who had once worn arrogance, like armor, now crumbled, sobbing openly under the dim glow of the parking lot lights. "Why, Sundar?" he choked out. "Why would you help me after everything I did to you? Why not leave me to this misery I created?" Sundar felt a lump rise in his throat, but his voice was steady as he answered. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone. And no one, Not even the boy who once hurt me deserves to be consumed by fear without a hand reaching out. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps approaching from the far side of the lot. Sundar's eyes darted up, catching sight of two men in dark jackets slowly crossing toward them. Their movements were casual, but their eyes were locked on Arjun. One of them smirked, nudging the other, as though they had stumbled upon prey. Exactly where they expected. Arjun stiffened instantly, his breath caught in his throat. "It's them," he whispered, his voice trembling. "They found me." Sundar's body tensed. He wasn't a fighter by trade, but he had learned enough in life to recognize the kind of danger standing before them. The men carried no visible weapons, but the menace in their expressions was clear. These weren't just debt collectors. They were predators. "Arjun," one of them called out, his tone mocking. "You forgot to answer your phone." "We don't like being ignored," the other one chuckled darkly. "And who's your friend? Looks fancy? You bringing in new investors?" Arjun's face drained of color. His hand shook as he tried to rise from the bench, but Sundar placed a calming hand on his arm, steadying him. Sundar rose slowly to his feet, standing tall. His eyes locked on the two men. The taller one approached closer, his grin widening. "You owe money, Arjun, and now looks like you've made a friend with deep pockets. Maybe he can pay your way out." He turned his gaze to Sundar, his tone dripping with mockery. "What do you say, sir? Want to buy your friend's freedom?" Sundar's heart raced, but his expression remained calm, unreadable. He had faced shareholders who tried to break him, politicians who tried to outsmart him, competitors who wanted to destroy him, but this was different. These men played with fear as their currency, and Sundar knew that one wrong word could trigger something he couldn't control. Arjun tugged at his sleeve, whispering urgently, "Please, Sundar, don't get involved. They'll ruin you too. Please, just go." But Sundar didn't move. He looked at the men steadily, his silence louder than any words. The taller one leaned closer, his voice low and menacing. "We'll be in touch soon. And if either of you think you can hide, think again." They turned and walked away slowly, deliberately, leaving behind the weight of their threat hanging in the air like poison. Arjun collapsed back onto the bench, his face buried in his hands. "It's over," he muttered. "They'll never let me go. And now, Sundar, now they'll come after you too." Sundar stood still, his mind racing. What had begun as an unexpected reunion had now placed him directly in the path of danger. He looked at Arjun, broken and afraid, and then at the shadows where the men had disappeared. This was no longer just about forgiveness. This was about survival, redemption, and a fight he never imagined he would face. Asterisk, a test of character tonight seemed heavier after the two men disappeared, as though their presence had left behind an invisible weight pressing down on both Sundar and Arjun. Sundar remained standing, his face calm but his mind racing. The men had said little, yet their words carried a violence that hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Sundar had faced many challenges in his life: poverty, competition, doubt, but this was different. This was a fight without rules, a shadow. A war of fear and control. Arjun sat hunched on the bench, his face buried in his hands, whispering broken words that barely made sense. "It's over. They'll destroy me. They'll destroy you too. I should have left. I should never have spoken to you." His voice cracked with despair, each syllable weighed down by years of regret. Sundar knelt beside him, his hand steady on Arjun's shoulder. "Listen to me," he said firmly, his tone carrying a strength that cut through the trembling. "This isn't the end. I don't care how powerful they think they are. No one is untouchable. No one should live like this, afraid, broken, hiding in shadows." Arjun lifted his head, his eyes red and wet with tears. "You don't understand, Sundar. You've lived in light, in respect, in success. You don't know what it's like to live with people who don't fear the law, who don't care about morals. To them, life is cheap. They take what they want, and if you stand in the way, they break you. I'm already broken. I've accepted it, but you You shouldn't risk yourself for me. Sundar looked at him with piercing calm. You think because you hurt me once, I'd leave you to suffer now? No, Arjun. I don't measure people by the worst thing they did years ago. I measure them by who they choose to become today. And right now, you're a man who needs help. That's enough for me. Arjun's lips trembled, his voice a whisper. But why? After all I did. Sundar's gaze softened. Because if I don't help you, then what was all my success for? What's the point of rising to the top if you can't reach down and pull someone else out of the pit? Silence followed. For the first time, Arjun didn't argue. He simply stared at Sundar as though trying to process a level of compassion he had never experienced, not even in his best days. But the silence didn't last. Sundar's phone buzzed again, vibrating insistently in his pocket. He hesitated before pulling it out. The screen displayed an unknown number. His instincts told him what it was even before he answered. He pressed the phone to his ear. Hello? A voice on the other end was smooth, almost polite, but with a sharpness that cut deep. Mr. Pichai, I hear you've taken an interest in one of ours. Sundar's body stilled. His eyes flicked to Arjun, who was frozen, staring at the phone as though it were a snake ready to strike. Who is this? Sundar asked. His tone calm but firm. The voice chuckled lightly. Who I am is not important. What matters is that your friend owes us. And when someone owes us, they belong to us until the debt is cleared. We don't care if he's your childhood friend, your brother, or a stranger. The rules are the same. Sundar's grip on the phone tightened. And if he can't pay, the voice grew colder. Then he pays with suffering. And if you stay close to him, so will you. But you're different, Mr. Pichai. You have resources, influence, power. If you want to protect him, you'll cover his debts. Simple as that. We'll even give you a deadline. Tomorrow night. The line went dead before Sundar could reply. Lowered the phone slowly, his mind steady, though his heart pounded. Arjun looked at him with horror. They called you? Oh God, Sundar. No, you shouldn't have answered. Now they'll drag you into this. They'll use your name, your wealth, your position. You don't know what they'll do. Sundar sat back. Down, his voice calm but unshakable. Then we'll face them. Together. Arjun shook his head violently. You don't get it. Their debt isn't money anymore. It's control. Even if you pay, they'll find another way to keep me under. Then they'll keep pulling me down until there's nothing left. It's a trap, Sundar. You can't fight people who don't play by the same rules. But Sundar's eyes carried the quiet fire that had once carried him from a small town in India to the highest office in Silicon Valley. Rules may not matter to them, but principles matter to me. And I won't watch someone drown when I can do something. Arjun stared at him, speechless. For years, he had thought power was about force, about control, about making others bend. Now he saw something far greater. Power in humility, in compassion, in refusing to let darkness dictate the outcome. Asterisk. Yet beneath the strength in Sundar's voice lay a truth he couldn't deny. This was dangerous. Dangerous in ways no boardroom or negotiation had prepared him for. He wasn't facing competitors who feared bad press. He was facing men who thrived. In the shadows, men who had no fear all as the night deepened. Sundar made a decision. Tomorrow, you'll take me to them. I'll meet them face to face. Arjun's eyes widened in horror. No, Sundar, no. They'll destroy you. You can't reason with them. But Sundar shook his head. You once said they don't care about morals, but maybe they care about something else. Maybe they care about fear, respect, leverage. I've spent my life learning how to see through people, how to stand calm when others panic. If I walk away now, then I let them win before the fight even begins. I won't do that. Arjun's breath caught. He wanted to argue, but he saw in Sundar's face the same steady determination he had once mocked as quiet weakness back in school. Now he realized it was not weakness at all. It was strength. The kind of strength that terrified men who relied on intimidation. He lowered his head, his voice breaking. Then tomorrow, Sundar. Tomorrow you'll see the darkness I've lived in, and I pray it doesn't swallow you too. The night grew colder, the street emptying as silence reclaimed the space. Sundar stared out at the shadows, his heart steady, but in the back of his mind, he knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow would not just test Arjun's fate, it would test everything Sundar believed about himself, about forgiveness, and about the price of standing by someone who once tried to destroy him. Asterisk. The night of reckoning following evening came faster than Sundar expected, though the hours leading up to it had felt stretched and heavy. All day, he had sat through meetings, spoken with engineers, smiled at executives, but his mind had been somewhere else entirely. Beneath the polished glass walls of Google headquarters, beneath the endless slides and charts, his thoughts kept returning to the bench, to Arjun's trembling voice, and to the call that had pulled him into a world darker than anything his professional life had prepared him for. When the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of crimson and gray, Sundar found himself in a small, rundown part of the city, far removed from the gleaming offices and buzzing cafes he was used to. Arjun walked beside him, his steps slow and hesitant, as though each one dragged him deeper into a pit he had long tried to escape. The streets here were narrow, lit dimly by flickering streetlights, with shadows clinging to the corners like silent watchers. "Are you sure about this?" Arjun asked, his voice strained, his eyes darting nervously around. "It's not too late to turn back. Once they see you, once they know you're here, there's no undoing it." Sundar glanced at him, his face calm, his eyes steady. "Arjun, fear grows when we run from it. Tonight we don't run. Tonight we face it." Arjun's lips trembled, but he nodded. He had spent years bowing his head, living under threats, convincing himself there was no way out. But Sundar's words, simple as they were, carried a strength he had forgotten existed. They reached an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the street, its windows broken, its metal doors rusted. Arjun swallowed hard. This is the place. Inside. The air was thick with the smell of dust and oil. Dim lights hung from chains, swinging slightly, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. 3 men waited, the same 2 from the night before, and another bigger, sharper, his presence commanding the space without a word. His eyes locked onto Arjun, then shifted to Sundar with unsettling ease. "So," the man said, his voice low and deliberate, "the great Sundar Pichai comes to our doorstep, CEO of Google, standing in a warehouse like the rest of us. Impressive, risky, stupid." Sundar didn't flinch. He stepped forward slightly, his posture calm, his voice steady. "I came because I believe this ends tonight. No more threats. No more fear. Whatever debt Arjun owes, I'll settle it." The man chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Settle it? You think this is about numbers? About money? Arjun owes more than money. He owes loyalty, obedience. Once you're ours forever." He leaned closer, his smile cold. "And if you want to take his place, then maybe you'll belong to us too." Arjun stepped forward, his voice breaking. "No, leave him out of this. He doesn't know what he's saying." But Sundar raised a hand gently, stopping him. His eyes never left the man's. "You mistake fear for power," Sundar said softly. "You think breaking people makes you strong. But true strength isn't about control. It's about respect. And respect isn't something you can beat out of someone, it's something you earn." The room grew tense. The men exchanged glances, some amused, some irritated. The leader's smile faltered, if only for a moment. "Big words," he said, his tone sharper now. "But words don't change the rules." Sundar took another step forward, the shadows falling across his face, his voice carrying quiet fire. "Then maybe it's time someone changed the rules. Arjun may owe you, but tonight, I stand with him. If you come for him, you'll come through me. And you know who I am. You know the weight of my voice. The world is watching me every day, every move. You think you can silence me? You think you can hide in shadows forever? Shadows disappear when light is strong enough. And I promise you, I carry more light than your darkness can handle." The words struck like thunder. For a moment, silence filled the warehouse, heavy and uncertain. The men shifted uneasily, their confidence shaken not by violence, but by something rarer fearlessness. Sundar's calm refusal to bow unnerved them more than a weapon ever could. Arjun looked at Sundar, his eyes wide with disbelief. For years he had thought strength was fists, cruelty, intimidation. Now he saw a different kind of strength, the strength of a man who stood tall with nothing but truth and courage. And it was enough to make hardened criminals hesitate. The leader sneered, but the edge in his eyes wavered. He turned abruptly to his men. "We're done here, for now." His tone carried frustration, not triumph. He leaned close to Sundar one last time, his voice low. "This isn't over, but you've bought him time. Let's see how long your light lasts." With that, the men left, their footsteps echoing into the night. Leaving behind a silence almost heavier than their presence, Arjun collapsed onto the floor, his hands shaking, tears streaming down his face. I don't understand. Why didn't they? Sundar placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and grounding, because darkness feeds on fear. Tonight we gave them none. Arjun looked up at him, his voice breaking. "I don't deserve this, Sundar. I don't deserve you standing by me. I don't deserve forgiveness." Sundar's eyes softened. "Maybe not. But forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to let go of the past so the future can be different. You hurt me once, Arjun. But tonight you showed me something else. You're not the boy you were. You're a man who can still change." Arjun sobbed openly, his shoulders shaking as he buried his face in his hands. Sundar stayed beside him, silent, steady, a presence that spoke louder than words outside. The first light of dawn began to break across the horizon, washing the sky in shades of pale gold. The warehouse, once filled with shadows, now held a hint of morning light streaming through the broken windows. Arjun lifted his head slowly, the tears drying on his cheeks, and for the first time in years, he felt something he had thought was lost forever hope. What happens now? He whispered. Sundar looked at him, his voice firm but kind. "Now you rebuild. No more running, no more debts. You take responsibility. You live differently. And you prove to yourself, to the world, that a bully can become a better man." Arjun nodded slowly, his chest rising with shaky breaths. As though each inhale was a step back toward life, the sun rose higher, casting brighter light into the broken warehouse. Two men, once enemies bound by pain, now sat side by side, no longer defined by the past but by the possibility of redemption. And as the light spread, Sundar knew this. Sometimes the most unbelievable thing isn't revenge or triumph. It's forgiveness that shines bright enough to break the darkest chains. Asterisk.